Hey guys, it's Eric, and I took some notes on the commissioner, the co-commissioner, the other commissioner's notes, um, about all of his notes, and some rebuttals. There is some stuff that I agree with on him, but I'm not trying to take anything out of context, but I'm gonna start all of my arguments with something that Mike said in his video. So, uh, quote number one: we obviously know what a championship is about. No one else does. Says the guy that's never made the playoffs in D1, the only guy to not make the playoffs. Basically, the only time he's been able to make the playoffs is when he's taken advantage of his stooges in D2, and that's the only time. So, yeah, I know what it takes to win a championship as well. I've got two of them. So, quote number two: as required by law, you do have to be sober to pass an amendment. Ha, the best laws get passed when there's liquor involved, and like I said, I stand by all of my decisions that I made, with possibly one exception that I'll talk about later. Yeah, so being drunk, being intoxicated, had nothing to do with my decision making for the most part. Quote number three: to say that a guy needs to make his draft pick within 24 hours of the last one is pretty ridiculous. We are in the golden age of technology. If you don't have internet access, if anyone goes an entire day regularly without checking their computer or email, I would be shocked. If that's the case, I might have to reconsider. But even if you're on vacation, you should be able to have you should be able to get somewhere that you can just quick post who you want to draft. And if you absolutely can't, like I said, someone who has the 12th pick overall, if you have the 6th pick, just email them your top 6 picks, and then have that guy vote for you or draft for you. At 24 hours, it's far from ridiculous. I think it would be ridiculous for someone to not be able to make that work. I think. Quote number four: I love to see, number one, how injuries are portraying the whole situation of the depth chart. Number two, how the depth chart works out itself even in some sort of positional battle. So this was his argument against doing the rookie draft early, because he wants to know exactly how good the player is going to be before he drafts him. NFL teams don't know how good the player is actually going to be. Never mind. I do remember that one time that the Oakland Raiders, they got really upset because they drafted Jamarcus Russell number one overall, without being able to see him in any preseason games and stuff like that. So, yeah, I don't think they ended up drafting him number one, because he did so bad in the preseason, and they're like, oh, we don't want him. No, that's not how it worked. You do have to do some guessing in here. I know that Andy said he's only in favor of the rookie draft being before the preseason, if the free agent auction is as well. I think that makes it more realistic. It makes it more NFL-like, mimicking the NFL. More on that later as well. But I would love to do the free agent auction on August 2, or August 3, which would be 2 weeks after the draft starts. Everything happens before the preseason. Everyone is on the same level playing field. No one has any advantages. So there will be some unknowns, just like there's some unknowns in the actual NFL as well. Quote number five: it's hard for me to draft somebody and put him on a 2, 3, 4, 5 year contract when ... There's some gibberish in there. Who knows? He might even get hurt before he steps on the football field after I've drafted him. Again, teams don't know how durable players are going to be. They have as much information. Well, they probably have more data on it, but they have as much information as you do, going into the draft. You already know that the Cardinals would draft a running back, maybe, which sucks for Ellington. But let's say that happens. They don't automatically know that Carlos Hyde is going to beat out Andre Ellington. Why should you be given that information before you draft? Yeah, there's some guessing in here. but there's guessing in the real NFL as well. Yeah. Also, see Jamarcus Russell again. When they drafted him, they didn't know he was going to be a bust. But that's part of the deal. Quote number 6. If people can get out on the field and prove themselves, I feel a lot more comfortable about my selection. Right, because being a GM is all about comfort. Doing it before the preseason starts makes it so that everyone is on the same level playing field. I mentioned this. If you wait until a couple weeks into the preseason, if the draft is held over many days, some dudes towards the back of the draft actually get an advantage because there may be one more preseason game played between the start of the draft and the end of the draft if we decide to do the 12 days. And now this is a minor difference, but Mike, I think you said it would take at least 12 days. It would take at the absolute most 12 days. I know that it will come when it comes to my draft pick. I'm probably going to announce my pick within 5 minutes. And that leads to this next thing too. Whether we do it for weeks in advance, yes, it might help out the trade situation. You talked a little bit more about this as well. I don't think it's going to change the trade market all that much. Now, if there's exactly one guy that's left that you really, really, really want, maybe you trade up and maybe a guy fields some offers and stuff like that. But I think that half of the guys in the league, as soon as it's their turn to pick, they'll just announce their pick. And I think that this gets done in 5 days, not 12 days. That's just a prediction of mine. And the nice thing about doing the rookie draft over 2 weeks is it gets people, geared up for the free agent auction and stuff like that. It gives people a little bit of time to realize what rookies go undrafted and then are going to be free agents, and they can adjust their strategy accordingly. So there's no advantage to anyone about with preseason games and stuff like that. So I think that this actually helps out for the getting ready for the free agent auction. My opinion. Quote number 8. I know I enjoy, and I think most of you guys do as well, getting all together and doing the whole situation that way. If we're trying to get everyone together for multiple dates, once for the free agent auction, once for the rookie draft, if this past Friday is any indication, that's really difficult to do. So you said you had stuff, you had family stuff, family duties or house duties or something like that. So stuff does come up. I think it would be, it's a lot more, it's easier, I think, to get each guy to make a choice once over a 24-hour period than to get everyone together multiple times. We did have 5 of us all together on Friday. Everyone was invited, but that's all that we got. I think it would be difficult at best to get all 12 of us together multiple times in July or August. Not that I don't enjoy getting together with people. It's just hard to get everyone. Quote number 9. People are picking and choosing what they like. Whether it's like the NFL or not, it doesn't matter. I've thrown out examples in the past of things that we can't mimic the NFL exactly. We've had to get a little creative with this whole expensive guys to long-term contracts. More on that in a separate video. I've got a new formula. It should appease everyone. I don't want to step on that video's toes anymore. So another video coming later today. This is my favorite one. Quote number 10. I challenge you to name one person in the NFL who's ever had a decreasing salary. And then you were so confident that there was no one that did that you opened it up to the NBA, Major League Baseball, and NHL. Well, I found more than one. I could have found more examples, but I didn't want to waste any more time on this. Davin Joseph, all-pro guard for the Buccaneers, had a front-loaded contract. $9.5 million for the first 2 years, then $7 million, then $6 million. So, yeah, he was paid more earlier on in his contract. In 2010, the Redskins and the Cowboys front-loaded contracts, and one of those, as I mentioned before, was Miles Austin. when he was one of the best wide receivers in the league. He was paid more in 2010, less in 2011, and in 2012. The Redskins had that as well. Maurice Jones-Drew, at the peak of his career, signed a front-loaded contract, a 5-year, $31 million front-loaded contract in 2009. In 2009, Maurice Jones-Drew was a consensus top 5 pick. So this is one of the most expensive guys in a fantasy league with a front-loaded contract. The Packers front-loaded Sam Shields' contract. Now I agree, Davin Joseph and Sam Shields are not fantasy players, but these are top-end guys at their position in the actual NFL. You also said non-NFL as well. Our beloved roiding up Johnny Peralta signed a front-loaded deal with the St. Louis Cardinals. $15.5 million the first year, $15 million the second year, $12.5 million the third year, $10 million the fourth year. Front-loaded, decreasing salary. You want some hockey? I'll give you some hockey. Henrik Zetterberg, $7.4 million for the first year, $7.75 for the next couple. Then it drops to $3.35, and then it drops to $1 million for a few more years. So again, a decreasing contract for you to throw out. I challenge you to find one. I just gave you 6. And like I said, I'm sure there's more out there. I didn't want to waste any more time on this. So to say that this is completely unrealistic, pretty bold statement there. No, these are just a few examples. So I am backing off a little bit from this idea of, front loading. But to say that there's not any examples out there is that's incorrect. Quote number 11. I don't know Julius Thomas's personality. Would he sign for a minimum contract to win a championship? He might. So the issue here, if you figure out how we can treat each player differently based on their attitude, if there's a way to implement that, that would be great. If there's a way to do the restructuring of contracts, that would be great. I don't know how to do all of that. I did throw out earlier in the year the whole holdout concept, which I'm still in favor of. So we already have the ability to drop players, but players don't have any leverage. So again, we cannot perfectly emulate the NFL on a lot of these things, like attitude, desire to win a championship, trumping salary. But there are things that we can do to, make salaries more beneficial for the players. Quote number 12. I can't go through and load up on 1 or 2 strong people like a McCoy, like a Johnson, and sign them both for 1 year, and even have enough cap room to sign everyone else to make it 50 years. This is kind of awkward. I did that. It wasn't Kelvin. It was Jimmy Graham. But the most expensive tight end, and one of the guys that you threw out as an example, that you said you could not sign both of those guys to expensive 1-year deals and then still get to 50 minimum contract years. I did that just this year. LaShawn and Jimmy Graham. So it is possible. It can be done. So again, for you to say that, that's not possible to do, false. Quote number 13, there's always going to be a stipulation for running backs, 30 years. For wide receivers, do we treat 20-year-olds differently? Again, I may have said that we discussed talking about treating running backs 30 and older a little bit differently. I will blame a little of that on the intoxication. I think that makes it way, way, way too complicated, and I don't think that it needs to be based on age or number of carries or anything. The formula that I've got, which I'll, again, video coming soon, does not do that. We do need certain limitations on how complicated we want this to be. My goal is not to make this league complicated enough that only a stats professor can understand it. That is not the goal of this. I don't think we need to take age into play. Quote 14, this was about Derek and Scott's deal. He says there was no rule, or Mike says there was no rules or regulations against it. And you did say that, more formal thing is coming.